Well, good morning, everybody. It's Tuesday, March the 5th, and as we start to watch some of the things that we've been concerned about in the changing kind of behavior of the jet stream pattern of the Pacific, we're beginning to see the models pick up on the potential implications of that. And what I mean is this. You've been looking at a map that shows the next 10 days of average temperature anomalies, and it's kind of writing a similar story to the one we've been seeing. A lot of colder air in the west. We have some colder air in parts of the Canadian prairie and colder air that's up here in Alaska. Very mild conditions across the eastern half of North America. But the concern is that split in the jet stream, remember we talked a lot about that yesterday, north of Hawaii, it's going to start to shift and break down. And the newest models just came out over the last two runs, have kind of given us a similar look. So this would be what day 10 through 15 is looking like. So this would be getting out there toward the middle of the month of March, and we're starting to see evidence of more ridging up the west coast of the United States. Pretty highly amplified pattern. So doing something a bit like that. And what that's going to do is allow for troughs toward the middle of the month to slide farther to the south and deliver colder air. So that's one transition that I wanted to make sure that we talked about here in a few minutes. The second thing is, remember, we've got brand new forecast data from Europe, the European models, artificial intelligence model, machine learning model, and its newest updates did increase precipitation rates and amounts for parts of the eastern Corn Belt. Still extremely wet for parts of the south, even including parts of the mid-south. And we did notice that it picked up a bit more moisture back into the western part of the Corn Belt, which is needed. But overall, still problem areas begin to arise with drier conditions kind of in this arrow and along this arrow here in western Texas and in Mexico. And we just wonder what the implications of that could be later in the season. If these regions start off a bit drier, how long do they stay drier into spring? The other part of this is we're still expecting some pretty heavy snows right into this quarter. We'll take a closer look at it in a few moments. So knowing that the temperature pattern is going to make a bit of an adjustment and the jet stream is going to adjust with it, we just want to take a look at how long we can kind of stay in the current pattern, because we do have one more really good system coming through over the Rocky Mountains. And by the 7th, we're expecting this to be producing the risk of severe storms down across the south. Now, we had some pretty nasty storms yesterday, but I just want to point out that 2 days from now, this next big wave comes out. It's a slower moving wave. It gets all the way into New England before it curls up deeply. And we're going to talk about the New England chances of snow here. But a pretty large area already identified in the day 3 forecast from the Storm Prediction Center as having a slight risk. So this would be where that dry line boundary jumps out, and we're going to have a deeper low farther to the south. So when I say deeper, I mean farther to the south in this case. And it's going to curl up a tight little triple point, we think, right here, which will be something to watch very carefully. Now, we already had some severe weather this week. In fact, the storm reports for yesterday look something like this. We had 53 reports. Most of them were hail. There's a lot of smaller hail reports, thankfully. Had a couple locations here, 5 locations with strong winds as well. As of now, no tornadoes were reported from this, but I did see a couple of pictures yesterday that made me wonder if a few of them did spin up with the storms that were here in northern Illinois again. Just looking at the last 24 hours of maximum estimated hail size from radar, again, you can see these cooler colors representing from 1/4 up to 1.5 inches, and that's mostly what we saw out of these storms of Illinois, Iowa, Missouri, down through Arkansas, Louisiana, and Texas. But there were a few pockets in there. I saw some much larger hail that we need to just consider probably doing quite a bit of damage. All right, total precip we got out of this was good for some folks. I mean, you can see that there were a few places in here over some of those very dry soils we've been focusing on for the last several months, honestly, that did pick up a good drink of water out of this. And the storms down in the lower Mississippi River Valley and the Delta here also produced some pretty heavy rains too. Then we watched that low yesterday curl its way up like this. You can even see some much needed moisture getting to this part of North Carolina and Virginia. And this is going to continue on its way toward and through New England later on today. But I was fascinated to see the snow that's in this area. And we can finally see it on some satellite data. And we talked a lot about the snow yesterday in the Sierra Nevada mountains and the Cascades and the Central Rockies. But this is a quick look back on the radar over the last 18 hours to see those pieces moving together. This front actually moved slower than I thought it would. I thought we'd actually have this already through Illinois over in Indiana by this time in the morning. And instead, it's much slower cutting through this part of the country, which in terms of delivering rain, is a very good thing. Here's the low going up the East Coast we just mentioned, so that'll continue toward New Jersey, Pennsylvania, New York, and all throughout New England here the rest of the day today. And these storms, as they're coming through this morning, they're going to be kind of loud. Just taking a look at lightning strikes early this morning. I'm one of my favorite sites. You should bookmark it, blitzertongue.org. Great site, just kind of counting up those strikes and seeing where they are. And I'm close to a couple of these storms, so you may hear some thunder on my recording here in a few minutes. I live right about here in Illinois, just in case you were curious. So given all of that, let's go back and look at that snowy aspect of this. So the sun's rising this morning here on our low curling up the East Coast, but I want to go back to yesterday and try to see under the clouds. Okay, so here's the big convection going on down south, and here it is along that front. But if we look in the northern plains and Canadian Prairie, I can now start to see where that snow line was from the snowfall events we've had just here over the last 5 or 6 days. And I love it. We needed the moisture back in this area. Now, it's not much. It's not drought busting by any measure, but it's snow, and we needed to put some into that area because it'll melt slowly. We'll get some of the moisture out of that, and that's a good deal. Now, when will we clear things out in the west to kind of see what snowpack looks like there from satellite? We might be a little farther away from seeing that than just a couple of days here. And that's because we're still dealing with out west another day of flow coming through here that's going to add some more snow. But just speaking of snow, now this was through yesterday because I make this map about 9 o'clock every morning. This was through Monday. We can see so much of the northern plains, especially into Minnesota, this part of the Dakotas to Minnesota, Wisconsin. There's a lot of 15 to 30s in here, meaning that this winter delivered, 15 to 30% of normal snow. And now we understand that we can get big snows in here throughout the month of March and even into April, but it's a lot to a lot of snow that would have to fall to undo these numbers. And to be honest, that would be more of a disaster than anything. So just wanted to show you this map again. We'll keep looking at it as we start to finish up this winter time frame. Okay, today's all hazards map as of early this morning, about 5:30 Central Time. Winter storm warnings continue here. Winter weather advisories, except for when you get over to Yellowstone, we have still winter storm warnings. And what we're waiting on is this next big system to curl its way down through California, Arizona, and Mexico and emerge. And that'll be the next big system. And right now, it's kind of lingering here. So it's got support from the subtropical jet coming from Hawaii. But here's the wave. There's one a little bit farther to the north. Here's the one that's going up New England, and the broader trough that's producing that rain that moved through Illinois is coming right in through this direction right now. So the pattern's just kind of on a bit of a reload moment where this will be our next big feature to come through. And as you all know, what I am watching is for this split to either shift, move, flatten, be gone, whatever. That split is critical to this pattern we've been in. And I think that by the time we get out there about 10 days from now, this split will live somewhere here along the west coast, meaning that's when we'll start to be able to see the snow because there won't be much clouds. It'll warm up quite dramatically as that moves toward the west coast. So that's where I'm going to be taking this forecast. Now listen, tomorrow in that forecast video, I'll have brand new data from the ECMWF, and I want to compare it directly to the CFSV2's forecast. I've seen a lot of people just blindly posting the CFSV2 forecast out there. Now, I want you to understand something. The CFSV2 is the most aggressive model there is at not just collapsing El Nino, but giving us a full-blown super La Nina by fall, which means it'll be a strong La Nina by summer. It's the only model that's done that, so I'm anxious to see the other models today and how they're going to evolve. So just a quick note on what you're going to get tomorrow in this forecast video. But let's get back to right now. So picking this up, this morning, we're going to watch those three pieces, so 1, 2, and 3, move across middle of the day. The New England system gives a nice good soaking rain. It's followed by a front that delivers a nice little low that's trying to curl up down here in Alabama and Georgia and Florida, delivering some much needed, some additional rain. I don't know how much they need it, given how wet it's been and what we're still forecasting down here, but still some more moisture. And that slides right over the Carolinas as we watch the storm that's going through Northern California and Oregon and Idaho today deliver snow tomorrow on Wednesday into parts of North Dakota where they just got some snow, including parts of southern Saskatchewan and Manitoba. Now from here, this is 10 a.m. March 6th. Let's play it through And that low continues to curl through parts of Manitoba over toward Ontario, and possibly even drops a little front right in through there. I have to keep an eye out on that. That would be 9 p.m. tomorrow night on Wednesday night. Now, the next thing we're watching is this. There's a broader trough that is sunk into the south, and it starts to emerge right here. Okay, and this is where we're beginning, to have the concern on Thursday for the risk of stronger storms. Now listen, this system you see right here popping out, this is kind of a lead wave. There's a secondary wave. Can you see it way back here in California that's trailing it? And the two are working together to produce the risk of the strong to severe storms over the south on Thursday. That would again be the 7th. Now, bigger picture things, what is this next system going to do? Well, if we add it all up and just look at the precipitation anomaly, so this is not a comparison of the models right here. This is the ECMWF precipitation anomaly, so this is where the model's wetter than average and drier. That next system is delivering some desperately needed rains into this area. Very, very wet in the southeast and wet up the east coast. But this next 7 days, because that system dips so low and is slow, we might actually finally get some moisture back into the central plains out of this as well. So we come back to that same narrative. This is our drier spot. Now, this is today, going on right now. And after this, we get a bit of a break in the west as we just calm down the Pacific Ocean jet stream and give the west a bit of a rest here going forward. But this is the same map, but from the GFS. So there are some similarities in the models just going out 1 week. So let's go ahead and compare them side by side as we normally do and get an idea on the sense of timing of this. So we've already seen through, there we go. There goes that system through Canada. There's a little front that it drops. Here we are Thursday morning. Now on Thursday morning through Thursday midday and Thursday evening, remember, there is the trough on the backside and the lead trough on the front side. And all of them are a part of a broader trough system. So I guess I should call these short waves, part of this broader long wave that is here. So this will be where we'll watch for on Thursday night, the risk of those stronger storms, getting into early Friday morning. There you go. Now the models have a little bit different solution on this, but this could mean some heavy snows that slide down the front range, getting almost to New Mexico, maybe even clipping parts of the panhandles here. That's going to be a tough forecast to try to figure out this Friday. And then this low slides east. Now as it does so, it delivers some rain into the Ohio Valley, hits the southeast, rolls up into the northeast, and what we end up getting out of this is on Sunday, the risk of enough cold air on the backside to possibly deliver some heavier snow. Now, I still cannot seem to pin this down. The models and the transition over to snow are quite difficult to figure out, and it might be after the low exits that you get some wraparound on the backside that delivers some snow. That would be Sunday night into Monday morning. So let's just watch it all again. First off, there's the moisture returning on Thursday to parts of the Central Plains. Is it a lot? No. But is it moisture? Yes. So this is what we've got for Thursday midday. Watch the system curl up, roll through the Ohio Valley, spread by Saturday into Sunday into New England, curl itself out, deliver some backside snow here, and then our attention goes back to the Pacific Northwest, where the next low comes in early next week. Now that low, as it comes into the Northwest, I don't think the models are handling very well how it might emerge into the central United States on the 13th. And the reason is, by middle of the month, the pattern in the West begins to take on a very highly amplified look to it. So I have very little confidence on where this system, you can see it out here next Tuesday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, where it's going to end up in the midsection of the country. But let's go ahead and add up what we do know about the next 5 to 7 days. So European model, there's system number 2. We're already to Saturday, Sunday. Let's get out there to Monday and to Monday night, which gives us a 7-day forecast on this. So that's the European model 7-day operational run. This is not the AI version. This is the regular version, the dynamical model. And here's the GFS for comparison. So European GFS. I can pick out some pretty interesting differences here, but overall, I like the model's evolution of this. On the snowfall side of it, here's what we got. That's out a week. So could we get a little bit of snow here? Yes. Some in Wisconsin, UP, certainly. Maybe in lower Michigan as well. But take a look at what the European model solution is. This is a good 1 to 3 inch of in here with some embedded 4 to 5. And then as you get farther into Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine, the amounts are higher. You can even see some snow in Ontario, maybe getting all the way down as far south as like London, Ontario, and then heavier snows into Quebec as well. Now that second system, as it slides down here, again, the European model possibly delivering some snow into the panhandles out of Colorado. And a lot of what you've got right now in this area is coming from the current system rolling through. So that's 168 hours or a week out in the Euro. Here's the GFS. And the GFS has got much more snow farther to the south, back into Pennsylvania and West Virginia, than the European does, as you can see. But similar setups overall. So what we always do is we go to the ensembles. Here's the chance of an inch over the next 10 days from the European ensemble. All right, let's step it up to 3 inches to kind of get a better idea on that snow in New England, plus what's coming out of Ontario into Quebec, and the heavier snows possible here. Now notice, the European model of the next 10 days is taking that third system that's out there beyond, this is like the one that's out there 13th, 14th, 15th, and trying to put some snow down here into Nebraska. So what a wild ride, right? If that does make it into that area. This area was up in the 80s earlier in February. So here's the chance for 6 and the chance for 12 inches out of the next 10 days. Now on the total precipitation side of it, again, there's that corridor of drier weather. We've kind of shrunk that region into the central plains, but it's still in West Texas and New Mexico. So that's who is going to be receiving less than, or has a probability, a chance of receiving less than 1/10 of an inch. And here's the wetter side of it. These are the probabilities of getting more than an inch of total precipitation. Let's go ahead and step that up to 2 because that's a broad area that's expected to get an inch. Here's the chance of 2. It's mainly in Mississippi, maybe out of Louisiana, Alabama, Georgia, parts of the Panhandle, and then maybe along the coast here, and then the Northwest. And here's the best chance at 4. So now we're really identifying those major areas of risk of very heavy precipitation. What I do know is this. We're going to watch this piece of the jet stream. There's that split that we're watching. It starts to break down not by Thursday, Friday, Saturday of this week. See, it's still there, but it's into early next week that breaks down. Remember, we related this yesterday to the MJO transition. And what's happening is the split by the 15th, it's not here anymore. It's now here. So the flow comes out and over and down or south and comes back together. So that means flow comes out of the northwest. That gives us a bit of a drier signal, and it starts to increase the risk of colder air because we're still technically in that winter/spring transition. So in summer, I'd love this. I mean, where I live in Illinois, I'd love this pattern. This would deliver big time thunderstorms for this section of the country. We're not in summer. This means mild west, drier air coming in over the top. If there's any place that's wetter, it's down south. And that's why the week 2 forecasts, I still think the CPC is way too aggressive on this. I think the wetter conditions are maybe here, but we should get drier weather in the west and near normal to drier coming into this section of the country. I really think it's going to look like that more than this out there at week 2. So we'll keep an eye on the transition, but that's what I wanted to show you right now. What goes on beyond that? I'll get to that in a second, but first, temperature information. This is what the beginning of February through March 4th look like in terms of ranks. And I did get a report from one of you in the comments. I told you I read the comments every day. I actually keep a list of stuff I want to address out of your comments. And I will do that, I promise. It's just there's a lot to go over. But we did have some frost that hit recently in California's Central Valley once again. But overall, we've had a very cold finish to winter here, and not one of the mildest, the mildest February is on record wherever you see the number 1. So it wouldn't be any surprise for me to show you this, which is since the beginning of February, the growing degree day anomalies. So in parts of California Central Valley, we're anywhere from 30 to 60 GDDs off of normal, which that means we're about 3 weeks behind in the arrival of spring type weather here, whereas we're about 3 weeks ahead in this section for spring-like weather arriving, where I've got places in parts of the Mid-South over here to this section of the Southern Plains that are over 100 to 150 GDDs ahead of normal right now. So impressive to see that. So this is why we've had such rapid planting at times across the South, especially into Texas. But you know what I'm worried about? I'm worried about the transition to some colder air. We started off the video with that. So here's Tuesday's high temperatures compared to average. There's Wednesday into Thursday. And what I see in this pattern is there's still a lot of mild air for the next probably 7, 8, 9 days. Still mild air east and colder air to the west. But the anomalies are no longer 30 degrees warmer than normal, but are, in the 10 to 15. And then after that, I see it starting to collapse. So there's Saturday into Sunday, and getting into Monday. And could this be kind of the last big resurgence of, mild air? Well, we got to think about that, because the day 5 through 10 still shows that mild air living in this area, while we're still cooler west, cooler up in Alaska. But take a look at this. This is day 10. So see what the jet stream's doing? There's that last low we're going to have to keep an eye on right in through there. But you'll notice that the split is now west. That's out there toward March 16th, 17th, and 18th. So what does this mean? If we begin to build western U.S. ridging toward Alaska, that is the poke I mentioned, something pushing into it that gives us this flow and colder air coming in to finish out the month of March. And that's showed up in the day 10 through 15 GFS, and it's also here in the transition from day 5 through 10 to day 10 through 15 in the European model. Now we just need to know how long that's going to last. So we're going to go back to the European solution on this. This is week 2, day 7 through 14. That would be March 11th through the 18th, based on yesterday's run. We'll get a new one of these tonight. And this would be week 3. That would be the 18th through the 25th. So you can see the cooler risks showing up here. And as we go forward toward the week leading up to Easter, a lot of cooler air seems to sit back in this area. And it may last through the week after Easter, which is right to this point. Now, I live in the Midwest, so of course I have a focus on that area because that's my backyard. I have a feeling that this area, the week after Easter, is going to be looking at those insurance dates and be planting very aggressively through mid-April. And I think it's going to do that for a couple of reasons. There isn't strong evidence right now that we're going to be overly wet during the second half of April. Now, it's just today. It's March the 5th. I'm looking out there to mid to late April. I'm not seeing really wet signals in this area. So as a consequence, I think we could get it going pretty quickly in this region, because a lot of folks are very concerned about the fact that soil moisture deficit still exists here. We've been talking about it nonstop. So I just wanted to give you a hint, I think, about planting at that time. Let's then get into, I think, the bigger and to be honest, most confusing thing for me. The newest updates from today all the way through the next 15 days are taking this strong rising motion and just shoving it. I mean, this is a fast transition, and I don't know what to make of this, because I would have assumed, I'll be honest with you, that we would not have seen a progression of the MJO like this. I've made a big stink about it, right? The last several videos, I've said, well, I think the MJO is going to curl out here to phase 6 over the next 10 to 15 days and then just die. And I've been providing you evidence from the European ensemble that says the ensemble average does this. The more we get that risk of it popping way out over here, the longer that cooler weather lasts at the end of March into April. And I actually am quite confused on if it's going to actually do this or if we just got a couple of wacky model runs in as of late. We need to watch this transition very, very carefully. And another reason for that is primarily because of South America. While we're over in phases 4 and 5, this area is historically drier. We're wetter into Argentina, we're wetter in the southern Brazilian states, and we're wetter in the northeastern Brazilian states. And I've told you that I've been worried about this being drier longer and ruining some of the conditions needed to have a great safrinha crop in this area. Well, with that odd look to the MJO possibly tossing out more phase 7, 8, and 1, these are the wet phases for Brazil. So they're cold phases for the eastern half of North America. They're wet phases for Brazil. And that's why the newest model runs, watch this. This is a 30-day sliding window. So there's March. Instead of going drier into April, the model just went wetter. And I think it is all just feedback, from the MJO, possibly sending more of it, the ECMWF, which is the model, suggesting that the MJO phase, that's the Madden-Julian oscillation phase, just gets way over here more. And if it does, then that whole narrative collapses. But I don't know. I don't know if it's really going to do that, because I've seen the MJO fail before to get into the West Pacific, and I'm not guaranteeing that it's going to do it this time, but I'm going to have to watch it carefully. So there's one last thing I want to point out to you. This is a national or international update. Most of Europe is going over wetter across the southern tier, including getting moisture over toward those Black Sea countries. See it here? Meanwhile, look at this whole western half of Australia, including Western Australia, the state here. And what we've got coming into Western Australia, the territory, I actually don't know what they call it. I need to look that up. Western Australia, this side of Australia, extremely heavy rains. So this is what I'm talking about. Does the MJO come back and live here? Because that is phase 4, 5, and 6. Or does it really get all the way out over here to 8 and 1? My projections are for a return to this area where it's been. And if it does, then this whole map looks the same. It'll just keep looking the same for a while. So you now know what I'm confused about. And so I'll spend the rest of the week trying to figure this out. But that's what the atmosphere does. So we just try to keep up with it and use our models to do the best job we can to see where it's going to transition. And we'll just leave it there. Have a good rest of your day, and we'll talk tomorrow. Thanks.